All About Relationships is an engaging, lighthearted, and practical show designed to help people improve their relationships in meaningful ways. Hosted by Dr. Don Allen, a certified Gottman therapist, as well as an advanced trainer for the Institute. He is also certified in emotion-focused therapy. With over 40 years of experience in the field of psychotherapy, Dr. Allen is here to provide expert guidance on strengthening marriages, parent-child relationships, friendships, and more. Through insightful discussions, audience call-ins, and guest experts, viewers receive real-world strategies to enhance intimacy, communication, and overall relationship satisfaction. So now, please welcome the host of All About Relationships, Dr. Don Allen.
And welcome. So I am really happy to be back on the air. I have a little bit of story to talk to you about from the last episode that I completed. I was with Bold Brave Television, and I did 10 episodes with them, and it was going very well. But I'm sorry to say Bold Brave is no longer in business. Well, what was really nice for us, however, is that Lanford Productions called me up and is going to continue to carry our show. So we're back on the air. So there are 10 episodes that if you're just joining me today, you can go back and see, and I would strongly encourage it, and I'll explain more about why in a moment. But we already have episodes. We've been up and running, but we're kind of shifting over now to this new production company. And like I said, we're going to have to get the program rolling again, and I'm excited to do that today. So the name of my show is All About Relationships, working towards ideal marriage and loving, lasting relationships. And that's what we talk about. So I'm going to explain a little bit about why I'm doing the show again, and I'm going to kind of show a little bit about my format. So let me just pull my notes up here to do that. All right. So as I said, the Pod Unity Network, produced by Lanford Productions, is our new home. This show is educational. And why do people want to tune into this show? That's a great question. But I think as you watch the show, you'll know why you would like to. And the reason for it is, anyone seeking better relationship skills, deeper and loving relationships, and a healing connection with their partner, or maybe just a reset. Just how do we do that? But I always look at, how do we enhance our relationships daily, weekly, and ongoing? So I will bring you a lot of information about that. Now, by nature, I really, really ground myself in the research of John and Julie Gottman and the Gottman Institute. Although I don't work for them in the sense that I'm not their employee, I do very closely affiliate to their science and will talk to you from time to time about what best practices are from the Gottman Institute. But I'm also trained in emotion focused therapy by Sue Johnson. So I may talk about that. I may talk about what happens when relationships have trauma. Well, I'm also certified in EMDR, and I'm also trained in prolonged exposure therapy. So I may talk about that. But the point is that All About Relationships is exactly that. I want to know what your relationship is, what questions you have. So we're going to give you information that you can email me, and you can go to my website and you can look to see more of who I am. My mission for this really has been, again, for you. One of the things I often say in the show is it's not a fair fight. And what I mean by that is that there's so many things that pull against our relationships and our marriages in such a way that it makes it difficult for us to have a long lasting connection with our partner. It isn't necessary to strain ourselves or even worse, break up. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all about relationships. But let's say your relationship's going fine, but you don't have a good relationship with your children, or you don't have a good relationship with your adult children. Well, people can write in, and I certainly can speak at length from that. Prior to really specializing in marriage and trauma, which I do now, I used to specialize with children, adolescents, and drug alcohol. I taught at universities. I'm published in children and adolescents. So I have a lot of information that can really help us to do better in our daily lives with that. Okay. Basically, what I say when I give you all that information is I'm just old. But that works for us too, because with those years of experience and wisdom, I can convey that to you. Further, I think one of the nice things about this is that, as I go along, a lot, if not all of what I talk about will probably be relevant 20 years from now. So part of why I'm doing this is to really provide these episodes so that people can always go back and refer to them so that they can maintain their relationship in a lasting and loving way. I often say, when you fall in love and everything's great, you really have lightning in a bottle. What happens is life can really affect that. So, what I'm going to do is tell you the good, how to do it well, the bad, what don't you do, and then the ugly, what really, really falls apart in relationships and then causes you to break up. I'm going to have people on the show that are also, really good experts in the field that can really help with those sorts of things. So can't wait to really look with that. So, excuse me. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to start looking at what we can do to build a better relationship. But again, I do want to get back to kind of my mission for this. This is a non-political show. It's honest. I always say, was this true 2,000 years ago? Is it going to be true 2,000 years from now? Because what I find is loving, lasting relationships don't change, right? I kind of laugh about that. I always think that kids are always the same. No matter when we were kids or our kids or great grandkids or whatever, kids kind of are always kids. So it makes it easier for us to help raise them when that happens. Now, granted, they're going to have all sorts of new toys and new technology, but kids basically kind of all behave in similar ways. So that makes it easier for us to help them, right? Well, the same way in relationships. Leo Tolstoy said there's a million bad families, but only one good one. John and Julie Gottman say there's a million bad marriages, but all they have to do is teach the one good one, and then we can do better. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what masters marriages do, what the best relationships do. And from that, we're going to really be able to maintain our relationship in a strong way and avoid the potholes. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. When you create the show with me, I can have guests on. Certainly want to make it fun and entertaining. And I definitely have some people that are coming on the show already that we're going to look at that. We're going to look at different problems and issues, but also what to do well. So I want to kind of say that what my format tends to do is it tends to go into the first segment. And the first segment is just kind of what we're doing. What you'll notice in regular shows is that I will bring up something to the good, something we want to learn to really make our relationships better. The second segment, I always like to go to the mailbag. What are you saying? What do we need to look at? Now, today I'm not going to do this because this is our first episode on Lanford, but what I will do is talk about different kind of things that might interest you all in terms of wanting to tune in and listen to some of the problems that I'm going to help you look at and feel better about. So we're gonna look at that. And what I think I'm going to do, just looking at the show right now, is I'm going to go to the first break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about questions we have and remedies that we might do, and then we'll go to our third segment. So I'm going to say bye for a second. Please come back, and we will talk in the second episode.
Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor.
Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
All right, and we're back, and I have to laugh. You know, we have those first episode kind of bloopers, and one of the things that happened was my camera defaulted back to my computer. So I've been looking at the camera, and you've been looking at my chin. So this time it should be a lot better. At least I'm hoping. So we're back on track. My second segment, not episode, but my second segment is going to be kind of, you know, those questions that people write into me, but I just want you to walk down the road with me a little bit. Okay, that's what we're going to do here. So I have a bunch of questions I just want you to ponder. All right, so listen to these and just see if they resonate with you, or think of the ones that do resonate with you that you can write in for me. The first one is, what if I love my partner, but it seems like we're losing a loving connection? You know, maybe we've been together and we had lightning in a bottle, but I don't know. It just seems like we're losing that. What if I'm giving everything I got in the relationship and it still doesn't feel like I'm doing enough or giving enough or they're receiving enough? What about that? You ever have that happen in your life, right? What if we have grown so far apart that we spend most of our time on our devices and less time with each other? I know in past episodes we've talked a little bit about media, so this is a common theme that keeps reoccurring. So I thought I would add that one just to see if that one resonates with you. What if I can't tell my partner what I really need? Why? Well, because I'm afraid of their reaction. I'm afraid of what might happen, right? So I don't say what's going on because I'm afraid that might cause us to have more trouble. What if our fights are no longer just fights, right? What if they are persistent and it seems like they are getting worse and they're always the same fight and we travel in circles and it feels like we're cyclic and here we go again and oh, I know how this is going to end. What about that? You ever have some of those? Okay. What if I worry that we're getting to the point where we're only staying together for the kids or for financial security or just fear of the unknown? You know, that one, you know, is a little more serious, right? One thing I talk about in my show is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And the good is just all those things we're going to be able to do to make the relationship good and keep lightning in a bottle and all of those types of things. And a lot of that stuff, you know, we know from science how to do it now. And I can help you with that. Do it every day, right? The bad are things like, and again, if you don't know these, go back to my past episodes, but I may review them, are things like what John and Julie call the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And what that means is we know from science predictively that there are 4 ways of interacting that literally breaks up relationships. They are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, which is the worst, and stonewalling. Stonewalling is kind of talk to the hand. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I'm just going to go in the other room and get on my device and ignore you. Right? Those 4 things we know are predictive of breakup. But we also have the antidotes for those, and we know how to help you identify them and stop them so you can get back to looking at how to successfully resolve conflict. And in so doing, your relationship can get back to the friendship house. Now, I haven't talked yet in the 10 episodes that I've done previously on what those 4 type of conflict interventions are, but I intend to. So if you're saying there are 4 of them, how does that work? How do you solve it? How do you work those? Again, I really want you to consider staying tuned because we're going to talk about all things relationships. And one of the ways we're going to do it is talk about the bad, which is how to avoid that. Another one that's really, really bad for people is what we call flooding. Flooding is when you get so mad that your thinking brain turns off and you go reactive brain. Some people call it lizard brain. I call it the amygdala brain. It's the brain that gets you out of a burning building, but it doesn't relate to anybody. It relates to keeping you safe. So once you get flooded, you can't even relate to your partner or have empathy for them. So when those things happen, we have ways of remedying that, but you got to know it and you got to do it because that usually causes you to start using so many horsemen that the other person gets flooded and then they are doing the same thing you're doing. So those are examples of the bad. The other one, just off the top of my head, actually I'm thinking of a couple, but off the top of my head, another thing that we need to do is 5 minutes of positivity to 1 minute of negativity minimum. Now, when we're really getting along well, it's much higher than that. But when it gets to 5 minutes to 1 minute and lower, now we start to worry about that disconnection from our partner. So I can explain all about those things. And again, you probably didn't even know that. So these are reasons why I'm really excited to do the show for you, because I can help you in practical and easily explainable ways that you can do this on a weekly basis. Okay. So that's part of what we want to do. So when I talk to you about, right, I talk to you about what if all of these things are going wrong in your relationship? What do we do? Okay. Well, now I'll go back to the good. So I'm going to ask you some more questions. First one, what if one small change a day could completely shift the emotional tone in your relationship? Okay. That's from John Gottman's Small Thing Off and Daily Rituals of Connection. Right. So I can even tell you where you can look it up if you want to know more about it. Now, all of these have grounding, but I'm not gonna take time to do that today. But let me give you some more. What would happen if you started every morning by asking, what can I do to make my spouse or my person's relationship and day better? What's one thing? Or maybe ask them what's one thing. Can a simple thank you, a simple kiss on the neck, a simple I love you really bring back that connection and closeness? Could it? Interesting, right? What if your next argument could actually strengthen your relationship instead of tearing it down? I kind of, when I work with the people that come to see me, I often say that. I often say, an argument should actually kind of be exciting because you can get the argument out of the way and you should be closer at the end of the argument rather than farther away. So how do you do that? Do you know? Interesting stuff, right? Now let's ask more. These are fun. Do you know the story of your partner, right? And can you understand that? And can you look at what that tells you about what's important to them in the relationship, right? If what they said you didn't know, would it surprise you? And if it surprised you, how would you relate to them? And then maybe they ask you the same questions and maybe they learn something about you. What if, right? This is another one that's kind of fun I put down. When was the last time you really listened to your partner without planning your defense or really looking at what you wanted to say next, but just really listen to them? That's pretty interesting, right? So these are just kind of fun things that I want you to kind of look at. First off, what's troubling you? What's scaring you? And then, wait a minute, what are some of the possibilities that could reverse the way we are getting along? I should say too, it's very usual for relationships to have to adjust to each other. And it's very normal that, people kind of settle into their relationship. So, when you first fall in love, you really have something chemically going on in your body called limerence. I don't know who named it, but that's what they called it. It limerence. But what that is that everything they do is wonderful. And, we have songs that really talk about limerence. I could list some off. If somebody asks me, I'll give you some examples. But you can hear the songs and you go, okay, that person's really just in that state of, gee, it's great to be alive, love. But as time goes on, when people really settle in, they start to be more themselves, as does their partner, that those chemicals kind of start to wear off. And now we're starting to adjust to all of those little things. Sometimes some of the things you thought were adorable when you were in limericks are actually the most annoying things to you now. That happens. It happens. But how do we do that? How do we adjust so that we are connected to our partner and love in caring in kind ways? What's interesting to me is a lot of people do describe limerence, and boy, I wish I could stay in limerence forever. But I notice with masters marriages, or the very best marriages, the ones that, John describes, or those perfect families, so to speak, that Tolstoy describes. What is it that makes them so great? Well, what you'll find if that happens is that as time goes on and the shared memories happen, you actually replace that limericks with a much deeper love, a much deeper trust, right? And if you're sitting there going, what is that? Well, you probably ought to listen to my show, because I will show you ways that you two can really kind of weed the garden each day, each week, so to speak, so you keep all of those wonderful things that you want in the relationship alive and well. Now, if you don't think it's doable, or you don't know of anybody that's ever done it, there are people that do it, and there are ways, hard science now, that we can actually do to help you with that. Remember, my show's educational. This isn't psychotherapy. Part of what I'll do is I think I'll try to have some people on the show that can actually go through conflict exercises for you to watch, but it'll be educational. These won't be, patients of mine or clients of mine or anything like that. So these are just some of the things that I want you to kind of consider, but I also want you to kind of leave the air going, wait a minute, I really, really would like to have some tips that can help us be better in our relationship. Most of the shows I see on television a lot of time are for entertainment, right? And I don't get political. I don't need to. I always say, how is this going to be a problem in 2,000 years? Nothing going on right now politically will be, right? So I'm not going to concern myself with that. But I think that, we do, through entertainment, potentially have things that you see on television that actually can make us more distant, or maybe on one of the shows that you're streaming, or maybe something on the movie screen that you have. So you want to be able to kind of look through that and sift through it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to have fun with that. Let's go to commercial, and when we come back, I think I'll get some kind of segment that I want to talk to you about, because I usually put one kind of information that you can use that's helpful for you, even though this is our first episode. So what I'm going to talk about is sex. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, come on back. We'll see you in a minute or so.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
So this is a topic we'll probably visit more than once. And I find that, when people write in, this is one of the things that commonly come up. So the question really that I'll put to you guys is, what goes into good sex, right? So what do people think of when they think of, what that means, right? So I'm going to talk to you about what science tells us in that. Okay. So the first thing, the big overarching moniker, and this is from John Gottman's research, but it also is in agreement with the other research that's out there. But one of the things that you have to have if you're going to have a good sex life is something that we call intimate trust with one another. And you notice that word intimate trust is implying safety. It's safe to talk. It's safe to be able to engage in behaviors where both people are feeling connected and safe and agreeing with what's happening, right? So very, very, very important. The other thing that's really interesting is the things that really make the sex life good really doesn't have anything to do with the bedroom, where a lot of people thought it did. Matter of fact, a lot of people, when they write books about how to have sex, they don't sell that much. But if you write a book on the relationship of sex, people are very interested, right? And there's been books written over time that really talk about, what people want to have in a sexual relationship, right? The book by Sherry Hyde in the 70s actually sold over 40 million copies because it talked about what women wanted with regard to sex. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about some of the things that people have discovered with regard to that. Now, one of the things I like to talk about before I talk about, John's research is that, sex to me is really, there's four things that go into it. All right. The first thing is sex is for reproduction. When I ask people about that in my office, of the four things, this is the one people forget, which I always find very funny. Like I'll say, well, there's one left. Well, I can't figure out what it is. Well, reproduction. Oh, that's right. That's right. So some people miss that one, which I always find fun. The next one that goes into this is that it feels good. People enjoy sex a lot of times because the body produces a lot of chemicals that says, I like this, you ought to do it more. So that's an important thing, and that sometimes kicks in long before we are in a position to really be able to have sex, so we get into high school and kids are all frisky and they really shouldn't be doing that, but it's on their mind a lot, right? So this is just part of the normal body and reproduction process, is it feels good. The next one, I remember a movie by on the James Bond front called For Your Eyes Only. And there was a song that was really nice that went with that. But that's the third thing, I love all these people on the planet. All these people are special to me, but you're the one that gets everything. You're the one that I get to be intimate with, and you're the only one I want to be intimate with. So that is a real important one, is that the sex is really reserved for our very most special person. And then the last one is, I always say it's a glue. And what I mean by a glue is that there's a lot of chemicals that are secreted during sex. Two of the bigger ones are oxytocin and vasopressor. And I don't want to sound too professor-like. But what those drugs do is they help us stick and stay with each other. Oxytocin is in chocolate, so it's no accident, in my opinion, that that's something we give at Valentine's Day. But what I'm saying is that oxytocin helps us want to stick and stay with our partner. And it's not just with regard to sex. For example, children really secrete a lot of oxytocin, and it makes us want to hug them and squeeze them and hold them and pass them to other people who hug them and squeeze them and hold them. And a lot of that is because we're breathing in that oxytocin, and that's a good thing because it keeps kids nice and loved up, and it keeps us really paying attention to them. But in a relationship like marriage or your lasting loving partner relationship, those things are good to help make the relationship be maintained. Now, there's a lot of challenges that can go into that. Let's say you have a loving relationship and it's awesome, and then you start to get in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. Well, now all of a sudden your body starts to change. Well, that requires a discussion, right? Well, what's that discussion got to do with? Intimate trust. Because we need to feel like even though our body's changing, our partner just thinks we're the best thing on the planet ever. And we need to make sure our partner feels that too. So we need to discuss things in a way that makes them feel safe and seen. And it's soothing to bring up the questions, even though we may not like to talk about those things. And then we can count on it. It's secure. That's the Dan Siegel research, right? So we can talk about things that we attune with our partner and we have loving conversations. The other thing about that is when we have conversations, we need to develop a way that we can really talk even what might sound like graphically to your partner. So you need to use words that have to do with reproduction, things like penis or vagina or breasts or whatever. We need to be able to talk about not only what we need, but we need to be able to talk about aspects of our anatomy that we feel close and safe with our partner about, right? So that's just another way that people need to do that. The other thing we need to do is really show we love our partner, not in the bedroom necessarily. So, when you're cooking, when you're having that Friday night date night and you're making something. Let's say you're making spaghetti and meatballs and a big salad and you got your water ready and all that. While you're cooking, nothing wrong with coming over and giving a big hug or a kiss on the neck. Just a big I love you. Just a big boy, are you special for me? I couldn't wait till Friday night, not because we're having spaghetti and meatballs, because I finally just get some alone time with you. And boy, are you special to me. And I just can't wait to watch that show we always watch together because I like watching that show with you. Those kind of statements are very, very bonding for couples and extremely necessary for the bedroom. Okay. The other thing too is doing things together. One of the things Sherry Height research says is that, for women, a lot of times is activities and interaction with their partners is a form of foreplay. So if you're vacuuming the floor and they're washing the dishes, that can be foreplay. Now, you don't think of it that way, maybe, but you should. Because, again, that relationship stuff that's so important to men and women, allow that to be better. The other thing is when your wife's really happy and into you, then you're happy maybe because you're like, hey, I'm acting in a way that makes her happy. And I really, really want that. For women, a lot of times, I'm just loving my husband so much. I just want to hug him and squeeze him. Well, that's part of what all starts to happen when we pay attention to what really, really makes people feel safe, close, and connected. Okay. So that's another thing, is to show that fondness and admiration that's part of that relationship house I talked about before in a past episode. Okay. So the turn toward connections are very, very important. And one of the things we notice is, and I said that earlier, when we get into conflict, it's got to be 5 minutes of positivity to 1 minute of negativity. But when you're grooving in this area, okay, now you're probably at 20 minutes to 1 minute positivity. So in other words, you're building those bids in the relationship bank account that's so important, right? So very, very important. So just things like that. Watch pressure and shame. The I need statements need to be gentle, and they need to be, look, this is what I need, but I really care about what you're thinking. Very, very, very important. Let me shift a little bit. Let's just not only talk about, best practices, let's have some fun too. What about all of you that just had a baby and your baby's like 2 years old now, and all of a sudden it's been like boot camp? And what I mean by that is all of these rituals of connection and all these routines and all the things you used to do that you look forward to. All of a sudden, all you're doing is raising kids, right? And then you get so exhausted, you just want to get on your phone a little bit and get some dopamine hits from just something you're watching on TikTok or something like that. Or let's say you're binge watching shows. Or let's say, you know what, I'm so tired over the weekend, I just think I want to go out and exercise all Saturday. And all of a sudden, those bids towards each other that need to be close to 86% success, like, hi, honey, I'm home, I'm over here, they're not happening because everything's going towards babies who are wonderful and amazing, but relentless, right? And let's say you're kind of one of those people that are having a kiddo, but your family isn't in the area. Or let's say you don't have a lot of friends in the area. So now all of a sudden you're kind of doing the whole load. And that's even making it harder. What we find in those kind of relationships is that by the 3-year mark, the ones who are really successful are the ones who feel like it's them against the world, them against the problem, not them against them. So one of the things you might want to do in terms of the foreplay department there is give a lot of little bids quick. There's nothing wrong if you're packing a lunch to put a little sticky note saying how much you love them. There's nothing wrong with while they're sitting there doing something they have to do to give them a nice smooch on the head and tell them you love them. There's nothing wrong with looking around the house and making sure that little creature comforts are happening. Oh, you know what, dear? I went by and I saw there were some dishes. I just cleaned them up and put them in the dishwasher, So, oh my gosh, that meant so much to me. Thank you. I appreciate you saying thank you, but I just did it because I wanted you to have a little more time and look at the house in a way that you think is cleaner, right? And it's not like it's the woman's job to do that. It's just that you're both doing it together, right? And the same thing, a lot of times you go by and the bed's not made. Well, just make it real quick. Those are little things that when you look at it, you go, oh, that's one more thing I don't have to do. These little things contribute to having more time so that you can connect the way I'm suggesting, so that when you finally do get to bed and you're not too tired, well, maybe a little cuddling happens. One of the things that I was fascinated with is people who cuddle. This is research. People who cuddle, 94% of the time report a good sex life. But people who don't cuddle, that 6%, they're having a lot of trouble. So just little hugs, little snugs, little caresses, driving in the car and holding hands. Those little hit and run things really, really create an environment that says, hey, you're still my person and I like you. So it's interesting because a lot of times when people talk to me, it's like, what are the secrets of good sex? They don't expect me to say, do the dishes with your partner, but creating that climate. One of the things that I sometimes talk about with that is that, when you go outside and you're walking and you go, man, wow, I think it's going to rain. And you can't really tell me exactly when it's going to rain unless you look at your phone or you watch the weather report. But let's say you don't have that and you're just looking. Yeah, it's probably going to rain in the next hour, I think. It's looking that way. Well, can you tell me the instant it's going to start raining? Probably not. But what you've noticed is there's a climate in the air, and then all of a sudden it gets a little cooler. It starts to rain a little bit, which pulls more rain, and the next thing you know, you got a downpour. The same thing that happens kind of in the bedroom. You're creating all of this climate outside so that when you finally have a little bit of time and connection, and you roll over and you spoon, and then a leg goes over a leg, and then an arm starts getting rubbed by a hand, and the next thing you know, you have that relationship. So those are important things. If you can, and I'm getting back to the reason I say it like this, if you can, you have to have that intimate trust, so it requires a conversation so both people feel safe. But if you can, try to create an environment where both of you are invested in, making sure that sex becomes a priority and that you talk about how much you need, and then you're very sensitive to what your partner needs. And then if you're doing that and you're having kind of a regular time to do it, one of the things that you notice is those chemicals that I mentioned in the four things, right? That glue starts to not only help repair your relationship, but it also kind of creates a routine whereby both of you can kind of reboot the computer and kind of start again from a way that you've made a lot of deposits to your emotional bank account. People get so busy and so tired, right? And then a lot of times they're so tired, they don't get their kids to bed on time. So now kids are up too late. And then the time you would have had to just be in your relationship, you don't have it. And then the next thing you know, some of these things start to drift off into a different direction. So you want to be, to use a music expression, you want to be on pitch with this. So it requires a conversation. And then even if you're grooving and even everything's good, add 5 years to your life, it might require a conversation, right? So just keep some of these things in mind. Let's see if anything else on the list I want to tell you. Keep it playful if you can. Make it meaningful. That's really, really important. And the other thing too is when you're having difficulties in life, and I've talked a little bit about this, but let me underline it. Your superpower in a relationship is repair. Say you're sorry and mean it. If you hear you're sorry, say, oh, thanks for saying that, and then give something you're sorry for. Well, you know what, you do this, but I did that. And, you were really cool with me and I really appreciated it. Well, honey, thanks for saying that. And you know what, you're right. I'm not perfect. And I'm glad you know that it matters to me that when I'm not perfect, it hurts your feelings and stuff like that. So these are some things just to keep in mind. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our last segment. This is a segment for those of you who haven't watched my previous shows that I try to look at things we're going to do this week. And one of the things we're going to do this week is to show you how to get in touch with me, how to get to my past episodes, and what we're going to do next. Now, what I mean by that is I like at the end of the show to say, look, we're all in this together. We really are. And we've got to fight because the relationships of the world are under assault from everything in the world. So what we're going to do is be a club that fights against that. And our joy will be all of these relationships across actually the world, because this is going out everywhere, to make our relationships better and be in the club with that. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to get in touch with me, but then we're going to talk about, that activity we're all going to try to do this week. And then we'll go on to our next episode next week. Just to tease you a little bit, I do have, because I was planning this prior, I do have a guest next week. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. This one is a little more serious. Most of my shows have been positive, but this one is that should I stay or should I go? And my person coming over is also an advanced trainer for the Gottman Institute. And I'm going to have her talk to us a little bit about something that's called discernment counseling. See, I don't do that, but she knows about it and she's going to share it with us. And it talks about, is the relationship in a position where we really should invest in it, or really should we go in different direction? The tough topic. But like I said, this is all about relationships. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and break. We're going to come back. We're going to show you how to get in touch with me. And we're going to have that assignment for all of us to do. We'll see you in a sec.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player, What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
And we are back for our last segment. So what we're going to do on this one is, like I said, we're going to know a little bit more about me and what you guys can do to contact me. And then we're going to have our assignment that we're going to go to have fun with. So if we can put up my identifiers, I'm going to talk about this. So you can go to donallen.aar, all about relationships, .tv at gmail.com. So donallen.aar.tv at gmail.com. And you can write in what you're thinking of the show. And the other thing you can do is you can ask me questions. And if you ask me a good question, I might go ahead and use it in my mailbag section, right? This show is love-based rather than hate-based. So I always like to have positivity. Even in talking with me, you should practice your 5 minutes of positivity to 1 minute of negativity. I don't mind when people complain. Please try not to criticize. All right, because that's Gottman stuff, right? We're learning how to do this with all relationships, even if you're talking to me. Also on the YouTube channel, right? So that's really, really good too. And you can find me also at my website at www.donallenphd.com. So www.donallen, DonAllenPhD.com. And that one's kind of cool to go to because it'll walk you through a lot of, my, not only my career, but I've done, television and radio, and you can listen to some of the other shows that I've done. Up Close Radio and Up Close Television has had me on. So anyway, just an opportunity to go learn about me a little more, but also you're going to get a lot of good information for your relationship. So these are some of the things we're going to do. So what's our fun assignment? Things we're all doing together, right? So we're all on the same team. We're all in the same club, right? But because I'm starting out today, I want you to go to my website, the one I just showed you. And I want you to look at maybe a few of my past 10 episodes just to kind of see what I've already done. I would start with the second episode. The first one's going to sound like this one a little bit. But then you can start learning about the 4 horsemen and the flooding and just different kind of things. I really liked my Mother's Day show and my Father's Day show. And my Memorial Day show I thought was good, but I gave so much information, I kind of thought I was talking like a dolphin. So that may not have been the best, but it's really good information. And I talk and shout out to military relationships. So if you've got military relationships and you don't mind dolphin talk, you ought to try that one. But if you like what you're seeing, show me this in your talk and get you to go to the episodes and then share it with your partner. So that's our big thing. If you liked what you're seeing today, go to a past episode, watch it, and then show your partner and watch it together and talk about how this might help you have a better relationship. So that's going to be what we're trying to do for this week. Next week, I told you I have somebody talking about a topic, and we'll probably talk about some more interesting things that I always like to put in there just for fun, especially on best practices for a good relationship. Okay, I'm Dr. Don Allen. It's a pleasure spending an hour with you. I look forward to future episodes, but I also look forward to you going on past episodes and really starting to look to how to have the best relationship you can have, and then give me feedback on how you would like me to help you further. Looking forward to seeing you in the future. Take care, and I'll sign off for today.
While All About Relationships is educational and entertaining, it is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, or professional advice, but an informative space for learning and growth. So tune in each week for an engaging and reliable approach to your relationships, ensuring viewers with practical tools to create deeper connections in their daily lives. Whether tackling conflict resolution, emotional intimacy, or family dynamics, this show is your go-to resource for anyone looking to foster healthier, happier relationships in a supportive and lighthearted environment. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern.